Plagiarism is a type of stealing. The Oxford English Dictionary says it is literary theft, the action or practice of taking someone else's work, idea, etc., and passing it off as one's own. It is possible to plagiarize any creative work, such as essays, novels, songs, and art. Plagiarism is always a serious offense. In the professional world, it can result in losing a job, costing money, and have legal consequences. At school, the consequences of plagiarism can include failing the assignment, failing the course, suspension, or even expulsion. There are several different kinds of plagiarism, and people sometimes plagiarize accidentally. Let's go over the rules. This will only be a short overview. To learn more, go to the library's guide or take the CAS workshop on plagiarism. Some common examples of plagiarism include turning in someone else's paper as your own, using the words of a source without quotation marks or a citation, taking an image, chart, or statistic from a source without a citation, or passing off someone else's idea as your own. Turning in your own paper to more than one class is also plagiarism. Taking the words from another text and putting them into your own paper without acknowledging the source is plagiarism. Sometimes people take just a paragraph, or a sentence, or mix up some phrases, but that is still plagiarism. The correct way to use another person's words is in a direct quotation. The words are put into quotation marks and correctly attributed to the author. In a research paper, you would say something like, "Neil Gaiman asserts that libraries really are the gates to the future." Exactly how you do the attribution depends on what style you're using, but in all cases you must use quotation marks and say where the words came from. You can also paraphrase a source by putting an author's idea into your own words. This is called an indirect quotation and does not use quotation marks. You still have to attribute the idea to the author. For example, you might write, "Gaiman argues that public libraries are essential to the future of our society." You are not using the exact words. Instead, you are communicating the idea in your own words. Be careful, though. It is plagiarizing if you only replace some words with synonyms. Another tool you can use is summarizing, when you describe an idea in your own words and in a much shorter way. Like a paraphrase, the idea must be attributed to the original author, but it is presented in a short, quick way. For example, the Harry Potter series is the story of a neglected boy who has to learn to defeat the world's most evil wizard. In all cases, you must cite your sources, but that is the subject of a different video. You can learn about citations at the library website or from CAS tutorials. What about using ChatGPT to write your paper? While artificial intelligence has many amazing uses, writing your papers is not one of them, and using it to write your paper for you is cheating. ChatGPT has been trained on huge amounts of data to produce predictive text. That is, it uses previously existing text to guess what words will come next. It does not actually understand what it is writing about, and can easily generate errors. It cannot think originally or be creative, and so its papers are flat and uninteresting, lacking in personality. Since it's using text others wrote as its base, it may reproduce that text and commit direct plagiarism. And ChatGPT cannot verify the information or text it produces. It doesn't know things. I experimented a little with ChatGPT and asked it to write a biographical paper of Kobe Bryant, complete with citations. Then I checked up on the information it gave me. While the facts were mostly okay, it was a boring recitation of basic information without the interesting and quirky details that a real person would put in, and it couldn't produce the direct quotations that are an essential ingredient in a paper. And all of the citations were made up. ChatGPT knows what a citation ought to look like, but it can't actually produce a real one. Every single one of the links it gave me were made up. For example, it gave me a fake link to an obituary for Kobe in the Los Angeles Times. The LA Times really did run a long obituary for Kobe, but ChatGPT couldn't really link to it or quote from it. It only knew that such a thing should exist. I then asked ChatGPT to write a paper detailing Kobe Bryant's accomplishments in the field of computer science. Kobe really did invest in a venture capital firm, and ChatGPT knew about that, but the rest of the paper was fluff without substance or attribution. Again, all of the citations were made up. In fact, one paper I had ChatGPT produce just had this at the end. Writing college papers is meant to let you demonstrate your understanding of the material and to express your own perspective while practicing analytic and writing skills that will serve you in your career. Using ChatGPT is not only cheating that can lead to failing the class, it robs you of the experience that is the reason you are taking the class in the first place. Is it possible to plagiarize yourself? Yes. Reusing ideas or writing from a prior paper you have written is plagiarizing, and is usually against academic honesty rules. If you want to use previous work in a class, talk with your instructor. Let's talk about avoiding accidental plagiarism. When doing your research, keep careful notes. If you find an article that you think is helpful, it's a good idea to email it to yourself so that you can always find it. If you write down an idea, always put the attribution right there so it doesn't get lost. If you write down a direct quotation, put the quotation marks and attribution in right away so you don't forget that it is a direct quotation. Get in the habit of paraphrasing and summarizing while also noting where the ideas came from. You can always ask for help from a librarian, a tutor, or your instructor, and you can consult materials like the library's guides, the Purdue Online Writing Lab, or the APA or MLA style guides. If you need to know more or have questions, contact the library.